Do you guys remember Mayim Bialik, the Zionist actress who took massive umbrage with the fact that she was out in public with her children one day and somebody who was wearing a Zionism is racism t-shirt said her name, and then she, did a press run claiming that she was the most victimized victim of anti-Semitism. Her livelihood was under threat. Her safety was insecure. Do you remember that lady? Well, she's back doing more podcast appearances. Actually, I don't know if this happened before that video or after, but it came across my timeline after, so we're going to go with that chronology. Ooh, she's like the actress. She's in The Big Bang Theory. She's in Curb Your Enthusiasm. She's Jodie Funkhauser in Curb Your Enthusiasm. She is insufferable. Yes, the Noxolotl, you're right. She is insufferable. Well, she's back, and I saw a clip of her doing another podcast with an individual named Jonah Platt on the Being Jewish podcast. So I thought, you know what? Fuck it. Let's watch this little clip.
I cannot be asked to choose between being a liberal and being a Zionist. Every term and all of the nomenclature.
That's funny because you know who else used to make that claim that you can't choose between a Jewish state and a democratic state, in contrast to the Zionist narrative that apparently Israel is a Jewish and democratic state? You know who pointed out that incompatibility? It was Meir Kahane, the rabid ultra-Zionist right-wing terrorist Koch party leader, Meir Kahane, who said, you can't have a Jewish and democratic state. That doesn't make sense. Israel is a Jewish state. And if Israel was put in a position where it had to choose between its purported democratic character and its Jewish character, 10 times out of 10, it would choose its Jewish character. Because what takes priority in Israel is not actually these purported democratic values or this adherence to humanism and liberalism. It's not. It's Jewish ethno-nationalism. That's what takes priority in Israel. And Rabbi Meir Kahane was honest enough to admit that. So when Mayim Bialik sits here and goes,
I cannot be asked to choose between being a liberal and being a Zionist.
I cannot be asked to choose between being a liberal and being a Zionist. She's entirely correct, because being a Zionist is illiberal. It's an illiberal ideology. Now, liberalism in and of itself is kind of known for being hypocritical and failing to live up to its purported ideals, but at least liberalism posits that it's supposedly humanistic, supposedly cares for pluralism and tolerance and all of these democratic values. But how do you square that circle with Zionism, which is an ethno-nationalist settler colonial genocidal project? These are two ideologies that at least liberalism purports to not be ethno-nationalist, to not be adverse to pluralism. So it's very hard to find a point where both of those ideologies can coexist within you and not contradict.
Every term and all of the nomenclature that many of us used to use, especially if we are, liberals or Democrats, right?
Right.
None of that.
Sorry, what does her necklace say? I can't tell. I know this is Israel. I cannot tell. Does this little pendant also show the occupied Golan Heights? Because I think that's what that little bump there is, right? Which, by the way, were occupied illegally and annexed illegally. The occupation, the theft of the Golan Heights occurred on the 5th day of the 1967 Six-Day War. Again, we've been over this. A war that Israel started, a war of aggression that Israel started, not the Arabs. But it was in that war on the 5th day when the Israelis stole the Golan Heights. Now, on the 5th day of the war, the Syrians were not threatening Israel and had agreed to a UN ceasefire. So, despite the fact that Syria was abiding by a ceasefire and not threatening Israel as per Moshe Dayan's own assessment of the situation, Israel still decided to go and conquer the Golan Heights, which it occupies to this day, actually annexed. So, for someone who purports to be a liberal, whether or not the occupied Golan Heights is actually on this pendant, it's part of the Israeli project, inseparable from the Israeli project. So for someone who purports to be a liberal, how do you square that circle? This is an expansionist project that stole territory, broke a ceasefire to steal territory in a war that it started.
Liberals or Democrats, right?
Right.
None of that seems relevant anymore. This spectrum on both ends has been pulled so far that it's just a circle.
Totally.
It's like a messed up circle. So
I'm very smart and I do horseshoe theory, even though I don't know how to apply it properly.
I don't identify, with many politics of the far left. I mean,
Sure.
And I don't identify with many of the things that that the Democratic Party has chosen to prioritize.
Brother, the Democratic Party has chosen to prioritize Israel. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Like, there's like a fringe portion of the Democratic Party that is like ostensibly anti-Israel. And then when they get into power, what do? They keep the police commissioner like Jessica Tisch and still purport to be anti-Israel, but then modulate and moderate their language until essentially they become diluted to the point where they're just functionally liberal Zionists. So I don't know what she's talking about, that the Democratic Party is not on her side. The Democratic Party is pro-Israel, fundamentally pro-Israel, an imperialist right-wing party. I don't know what she's talking about.
Not just for the Israel reason or the Jewish reason.
Israel reason, Jewish reason. As if they're the same thing. As if Israel just is the Jewish concern. The entirety of Judaism can be distilled down to Israel. That's what this person is putting forth. Funnily enough, this is disrespectful to Judaism. This overlooks the rich history that Jews have up until the point of Zionism. The idea that the entirety of Jewish history is just Israel is stupid. That's an insult to Jewish history, because Jewish history is pretty fucking cool. Prior to Zionism, prior to that, like the Bundists, that shit was cool as fuck.
I think many of us feel very confused about our identity as Democrats, because I think the Democratic Party has really let a lot of us down. And saying How though? How did they let them down? What did they do? That earned me accusations of being a Republican in my own home, right? That's how polarized it got.
Right.
That if you questioned what's going on in the Democratic Party, all of a sudden there's only one solution. That means you're a Republican. No, I got a lot of other choices in between, you know?
Modern Jews now identify Zionism and Israel as core components of their culture. It is very prevalent. That's a very prevalent position that is held in the Jewish community. And it's a problem. It is a problem. That should not be problematic to say, because there was a time when Italians were largely favorable to fascism. Now, if I say I dislike fascism and at a certain point a good amount of Italians supported fascism, would that mean that I hate Italians for some intrinsic reason? Absolutely not. I'm upset that they've fallen for a fascist ideology. And the same holds true with Jewish people. There's not a single hateful bone in my body towards Jewish people. But the issue is, Zionism has become such a central component for a lot of people in the community, and it's doing them a lot of harm too. You know, I'm not the person that puts forth the idea that Zionism harms Jews more than anyone. That's very stupid. It very clearly harms Palestinians, and Jewish people can derive benefits from that suffering. Jewish people in the West have the option to go colonize Palestine, and the ones that are in Israel are already colonizing Palestine. And everywhere else where Jewish people exist, they make up a very privileged minority. So I'm not of the opinion that, you know, Jews are the real victims of Zionism. That's stupid, and that diminishes the suffering of Palestinians. But this concerted effort to equate Zionism and Judaism in the long run is going to harm Judaism, right? Because like I said, there is a cool, rich history, a pre-Zionist Jewish history that is very rich, and we're just going to completely forget about it. We're going to completely forget about it because it's been tainted by this ethno-supremacist nationalist movement.
The principles of liberalism hold true no matter what. I believe in upholding the fallen and healing the sick.
There's something crazy about a Zionist saying this. The principles of liberalism hold true. I believe in upholding the fallen and tending to the sick. Do you know what your ethno-nationalist pet project does, big dog? They're nonstop massacring women and children. What are you talking about?
I'm okay with also living in a country where some people believe in the welfare system and some people don't. Like, I was raised to understand that people have differences of opinion. We don't go shooting each other in the street about it, right? So none of that has changed for me. I believe in many of the policies surrounding legalization of drugs, of prostitution. You know,
I'm a liberal. I believe in legalizing drugs and prostitution. But when my favorite ultra-nationalist ethno-state in the Middle East is killing women and children en masse, I don't like that you point that out and make fun of it and hurt its feelings. Okay, you're really making me choose between liberalism and Zionism when you do that. But I like drugs and I think prostitution should be legal. What is this political compass, dude? What the fuck is this political compass? Don't get me wrong. I'm pro-drug legalization. I'm pro-sex work myself. But goddamn, bro, priorities. You're going to defend Israel when it's literally doing genocide and upholding apartheid. And it has ethno-nationalist, race-based laws, like the 2018 nation-state law that literally says the right to self-determination is exclusive for Jews. Could you imagine if America had that? Hey, the right to self-determination is exclusive for white people or to Christians. That would be unacceptable. That would be like, holy shit, this is an ethno-nationalist regime. This is a white supremacist project. Now, don't get me wrong, America is a white supremacist project, but that mask off the way Israel is, where they have literal laws saying, nah, this right is reserved only for Jews. Yeah, the JNF, the Jewish National Fund that holds, 13% of the land? Yeah, we only give this land to Jews. If you're Arab, yeah, you can't have any of this land. That's liberalism to you? That's fucking crazy.
A liberal. However, this notion that support for Israel is in conflict with the Democratic Party is fallacious.
Well, she's right. The support for Israel is not in conflict with the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party fucking loves Israel. It's actually kind of their Achilles heel right now. The fact that they can't get over their unwavering support for Israel is why they're falling out of favor. It's because they fucking love Israel. That's a huge issue.
And it's sinful. And in addition, whatever's happening on those far fringes of the right is also not appreciated. We have to get...
Hey, you neo-Nazis, cut it out, bro. That's not appreciated. Why does it feel like she got more smoke for the left than the fringe right?
Get out of that binary, right? Absolutely. And this country is young, and whatever experiment we were doing seems to be revealing that there's something about this, binary system that is not meeting my needs, certainly, as a liberal Jew. There's a lot of moral ineptitude.
She's a third positionist. She needs something in between.
It is egregious to treat one minority population with such disdain, hatred, disrespect, and...
No way she's talking... Is she talking about Jewish people in the West right now? Hold on.
Meeting my needs, certainly, as a liberal Jew. There's a lot of moral ineptitude. It is egregious to treat one minority population with such disdain, hatred, disrespect, and intensity, when if any other minority group received this kind of attention, there would be a...
Holy shit, she's talking about Jews in the West. I honest to God thought that she was just doing some lip service for Palestinians in Israel, but she's not. She's literally making the argument that Jews are a hyper-targeted minority in the West, as opposed to the fact that they're a hyper-privileged minority in the West. Economically, they do far better than their contemporaries. We can look up that Tariq Ak Nicholas Substack article with all of the statistics that we've been over a few streams ago. It's completely inaccurate to put forth the idea that Jews are anything other than a hyper-privileged, hyper-coddled minority in the West. It's funny because she's saying, oh, you can't say this about any other group. I'm sorry, have we not just seen congressmen literally say that I would choose a dog over a Muslim, like what Randy Fine said? Or was it Randy Ogles who was calling Zoran Mamdani Little Muhammad and he needed to be deported? This is insane. This is blatant Islamophobia coming from congressmen, coming from prominent US politicians, people who are part of the institution. This is institutionally permitted bigotry. But if that was said about a Jewish person, that person would lose their job. That would be the end of the world, and as it should be, because you should not ever be able to say that about any group. It's horrific. So the idea that she's putting forth here, that Jews are hyper-targeted and you can get away with lamenting or being rude to Jews to a degree that you can't get away if you do that to other groups, that is the complete inverse of reality. I'm still actually a little bit shocked because I thought when she was going into this diatribe right here, this segment of the video, I genuinely thought she was going to pay some lip service to the plight of Palestinians in Israel, saying the idea that you could treat this minority group so terribly. I genuinely thought she was going to talk about that. I thought she was going to talk about the demolitions of houses, the fact that the JNF refuses to lease any land to Palestinians, the fact that there are race-based laws in Israel that preclude the Palestinians from the ability to assert national self-determination, the fact that there are laws like the 1958 Basic Law that passed that states that you cannot run for political office if you negate the principle of Israel being a Jewish ethno-state. That's an apartheid law, by the way, right? The definition of apartheid as we understand it, the Apartheid Convention, the Rome Statute of the ICC, it's the goal to maintain the supremacy of one racial group over another, and it lists a non-exhaustive list of inhumane acts that have to take place in that context. Those acts have to take place with the overarching goal of maintaining that system. Now, if you have a law in place that quite literally states there is nothing that people can do to change the ethno-nationalist character of this state that prioritizes the well-being of Jews, that would be an apartheid law. That's in Israel proper, by the way. That's not in the occupied territories where people like to confine the idea of apartheid. Apartheid conditions exist throughout the entirety of historical Palestine. So for her to go on to this little diatribe and say, oh my goodness, Jewish people in the West were so victimized, how are you not seeing the irony of your statement? Palestinians are actually victimized. Actually. Palpably. You could prove it. Economically. Politically.
Blood in the streets. That is the most suspicious aspect of what is going on. And this is what I tell my children. We don't have to agree on everything, but there's something conspicuously suspicious about the attention being paid to Israel.
Maybe it's because the entire political structure in all of our Western countries is fucking obsessed with giving Israel weapons and aid and diplomatic cover in the world stage when it's doing genocide and war crimes. We don't do that for other countries to the degree that we do that for Israel. That's the issue. That's why it's a prevalent topic of discussion. It's the fact that all of our Western liberal democracies that purport to uphold liberalism and tolerant values and pluralism and democracy, what are we doing? We are defending a genocidal ethno-state that is killing people en masse. We're pointing out the hypocrisy when we hyper-focus on this, okay? This is also just like a obfuscation tactic. Why do you care so much about Israel when other bad things happen in other places of the world? Okay, does that absolve Israel when it's doing bad things? Does that mean I'm not allowed to say, hey, Israel's doing a bunch of fuck shit right now because bad shit happens elsewhere? It's stupid. Goddamn, bro. That was amazing. I did kind of blind react to that. I didn't actually watch this video fully, so a little bit shocked at the end there. That's pretty good, as Larry David, her boss, would say.